Thank you for joining us on another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast with your co-host Kirk.
Hello, hello.
I am your other co-host Cam. My headphones thing keeps getting caught on the chair, so that's I gotta rectify that. Whew, that was almost a fatal mistake there. That could have jeopardized the whole production.
All of a sudden, it just jerks your neck out of frame.
I'm telling you, it's dangerous stuff that we're dealing with here. You think this is easy? It gets scary sometimes.
We have insurance strictly for podcasting. It's like specific.
It's like when Troy Polamalu, the football player with the really long hair, got insurance on his hair, like $1 million insurance policy because he had like a deal with Head and Shoulders.
Yeah.
So like if anything ever happened to his hair, he would at least have like some money back. That's basically what I need for my like neck or something. So in case my cord yanks me out of my chair and I fall and die.
That's right.
These are the things you have to think about.
If you fall out in a different way, you're not covered, and you lose everything.
That's right. Oh my God. Just for that variation, because it's very common. It's more common than you would think.
Yeah.
But enough about that. Thank you so much for being here. We're excited to be here as well. We're on the stream. We've got a lot of good, fun stuff this week. If you're listening in podcast form, you already have heard some fun stuff this week because we dropped our What If, Marvel Studios What If Episode 4 recap and analysis. And that was the best episode of the show so far by both of our estimations, right, Kirk?
That is correct.
Yeah, best voice acting, best story. It was well structured. It was well formulated, and there was plenty of fun little nuggets for us to dive into. So we really got into it on that. So if you haven't listened to that dropped today. Be sure to go check that out. But this week, both on the stream and in the two podcasts that the stream will become, we've got a lot of fun stuff. It's film festival season. We're kind of, like I've said, over the last couple of weeks, we're transitioning to fall, which means we're transitioning out of, well, normally it would mean we're transitioning out of blockbuster film season, but because of what 2021 has turned into, we're kind of getting this hybrid like blockbuster / award season thing going on. So it's kind of funny. I feel like every week for the rest of the year, we're going to be bouncing back and forth between like giant franchise and then like awards contender and then like giant franchise again and then like another like indie awards contender. So it's going to be a weird year, but the film festivals are here. We had Venice and Telluride going on last week with lots of different highlights from both of those festivals, which are pretty big. We've got our first look at The Matrix Resurrections, which is exciting. The trailer is coming on Thursday, so we won't get too far into it, but I do want to talk about a couple of things of what we've seen. And we're reviewing the #1 movie in America, which of course is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And I say America, no, the #1 movie worldwide, to the tune of $100 million plus. Here in the US, it did $71.4 million during its typical 3-day weekend, and then if you tack on the Monday of Labor Day weekend, it did $90 million, which smashes the previous Labor Day record, because Labor Day is not really a weekend that has been coveted by film studios in the past, so the record wasn't very high to begin with. But given the fact that it's pandemic, $90 million over 4 days is a huge performance. And Kirk and I went to check that out. We're going to be chatting about that. And then we're going to do something we love to do, and something hopefully you guys love too, which is to take off our critic hat and put on our fanboy hat and say, all right, now we've reviewed Shang-Chi. Let's talk about what it means for the MCU, which I'm very, very excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Should be a good time. Kirk, wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. I would definitely agree.
Yeah, it's something that I regret not doing for Black Widow. I think we get the pass a little bit. I'm going to give us the pass a little bit because Black Widow was a new Phase 4 movie, but it also was like set in the past about a character who in the franchise is dead and has limited ties to the future of Phase 4 outside of, Yelena. So that's why we didn't do it, but I do kind of regret it a bit. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being too easy on us, Kirk. I don't know.
There's a lot of combat fighting that happened from the Red Room survivors. And that's what we're calling them, I think. And, Shang-Chi, all about the fighting, all about the kung fu. So I
Very
think there's some
much.
crossover in how they will match up in some future films. But you have to stick around to the review, kiddos. Wait till the review episode and listen to that drop where we will speculate. We'll throw in some Black Widow. Why not?
Yeah,
We'll do
I
it.
mean, sure, whatever. We'll do it all. We'll talk about all of it. There's so much Marvel content coming out right now, and so much more to come out before the end of the year that we have to talk about it. We really do.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that. And I have also discovered something that is just horrifyingly addictive. And I shared this with you over the weekend, Kirk, but that is going through Letterboxd and adding films that you've watched to the watched column. And conversely, films you haven't watched but you want to watch to your watch list. It is a black hole that is among the deepest and most addicting in the entire interwebs. I honestly believe it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's TikTok, and then there's Letterboxd, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, often I've wanted to document what I've seen, but I have not gotten on your level yet, Cam. I've done it for a few minutes, and then I'm like, all right, well, that was a good chunk. But we've both seen so many movies that it may take the rest of our lives to recoup what we've already consumed and forward. I mean, that's just frightening to me. It's frightening.
Something that's really haunting me right now is that I just know in my heart that no matter how long I spend doing this, it will never be complete. Because there will be films that I saw when I was a child that I didn't know that I saw or don't remember, or even films that I saw in high school, college that I don't totally remember just because that's kind of how that is. Right now, just with the movies that I know I've seen, and I haven't even done all of them, I'm up to 1,000.
Wow. That's
films.
400 more than you were on Monday.
I know. This is what I'm talking about, Kirk. It takes up so much of my life. Just boom, watched. And I keep watching movies. I've watched I can't remember the number. I've watched at least 58 movies this year so far.
Yeah.
I think that number is probably low. Just spitballing it, but it's a sickness, but the best kind of sickness. Yes. And I saw somebody tweet that instead of doing like a scrapbook for your kids and spending your time on that, you should create a Letterboxd account for your kids and chronicle every single film they've ever seen, and then give that to them as a gift when they become of age. You go, here you go. Here's every movie you've ever seen in your life.
And you know what we could also do? We could take their notes on their review and review it as them.
Yeah, just use verbatim. Like, interview them after they watch it. Like, what did you think of that film?
Loved Bugs Bunny,
Yeah.
Space Jam 2.
Or like, if they're even younger, like just the gibberish. You're just like, got it. I'm gonna call that 3 stars.
Yes.
Yeah, it's addicting. It's addicting for sure. And I also think that I committed the cardinal sin of all cinephiles last night by watching Raging Bull on my iPad. I was like, nobody tell Martin Scorsese that I did this. Nobody tell him. I think I'll be sentenced to like the film aficionados version of Azkaban prison for that. Yes. Like, that's just not allowed.
Well, I hate to tell you this. He already knows. There
is
a tracking system that he uses on how things are consumed. And he's probably sending someone your way. Actually, I think he's sending Robert De Niro to box the crap out of you.
I would be, I would be okay with that. Because I saw the scene where him and Joe Pesci are punching each other in the face, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." I could use a little bit of that in my life, to be honest with you.
Little inspiration, like, "Come on, you got it."
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. I think Marty knows. I think he can sense it. I think he can smell it in the air, and he just, it's like a disturbance. He's like, something's not right. He can feel it.
He's eating a salad. He drops his fork. And he sprints out of the room.
He's like, somebody just watched one of my films on a screen that wasn't the optimal resolution.
Yes.
This is not okay. But maybe he will be okay because The Irishman came out on Netflix. But, don't tell like Denis Villeneuve or anything or Christopher Nolan. Those guys will straight murder me. So, anywho, let's move on. Let's talk about everything that's going on in film and TV news, Kirk, if you want to get into it.
I do want to get into it. Let's pop it up.
Let's pop it up. Well, unfortunately, Kirk, I do have to start on a sad note because we mentioned it. We mentioned Ed Asner's passing when we were talking about What If briefly because of the day that it happened. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it on the podcast, but we lost another TV legend, Mr. Michael K. Williams, just yesterday. So he was only 54 years old. Of course, an iconic actor who has played some of the most, like, I don't want to use iconic again, but really like characters that have come to life in TV, from The Wire, Omar Little. He was in Boardwalk Empire. He's nominated for an Emmy for his performance in Lovecraft Country. Just one of those actors that really, I don't know, the best way to describe it is you see Michael K. Williams come on the screen in a TV show and you're like, oh yes, here we go. This is going to be a treat. Just somebody who, you get these actors who stick in TV, and Ed Asner was kind of the same way, was more in the TV realm. And I think a lot of people would look at that and say like, oh, maybe they weren't good enough to break into film, and I would say no, because I think TV acting is in a way so different. There's a lot of people who stay in the TV realm, and those lines have blurred as TV has modernized over the years. But, to build a character over time, excruciatingly, to spend so much time with it, and to really bring them to life episode after episode after episode, it is difficult to do, and to really, like, you have to connect with them on a different level than if you're just filming a movie. And I think that's what both of these guys, both Ed Asner and Michael K. Williams, did so well. I mean, Omar Little, talk about a character that's why The Wire was so revolutionary, right? It was giving a voice to characters that just would have never had it before. And, taking something that you would say, that guy's a bad dude. But then if you look at the Code of Honor, it's just that performance and the way that they drew that up was just magical. And it wouldn't have been possible without Michael K. Williams.
Yeah, he's a baller. He's a legend. I was recently playing back, dabbling in some Boardwalk Empire. I've finished season 1 of The Wire. I've seen he was in a little movie called 999, which has it's about corrupt police officers. I think it's a heist movie, and they basically kill a cop, which is the 999 code, in order to pull the heist off. And I mean, he's just so good in everything he does, and he puts different flares on every different character to make them grounded, to make them impactful. Like there's not a single performance that you walk away and you don't gravitate towards him. So very sad. The reason for his death is not completely solid out there just yet, so we'll know more about that in the coming days. But he had 2 movies in production, actually 3, a TV series, a film called Surrounded, and a show called 892, or a film. So all look
and
like
he had a TV series that was almost done for Vice, like the second season. He has a Vice TV series that was just about done. So
all of those will, it's so bittersweet. You get excited because you get to see these posthumous performances, but at the same time, there's nothing else. And he was only 54, I believe, was his age. So very sad, very sad.
Yeah, and I think, we as fans, we don't know these people personally, so you have to rely on what you see. And the outpouring of support for Michael K. Williams, specifically with that being the most recent one, but also Ed Asner, you can tell the character of these people just by the way that other people in the field talk about them, and people who only briefly worked with Michael K. Williams just gushing about what a positive force he was, and what an influential person he was on set. So it sucks. It really does. But The Wire, Boardwalk Empire, things like that. Obviously, all of Ed Asner's great performances. Even I was watching Doug Days the other day, the new Pixar series with Carl and Doug from Up, and we will have those things forever. But like you said, it's not the same. It's not the same knowing that that's the end. So the Emmys are coming up in a few days, like a week and a half from now. I'll actually be out of town for the Emmys, but expecting a nice. And actually looking forward to the tribute that both of those guys will get, because it's well deserved for sure.
Right.
All right. Moving right along to our typical movie and TV news. We have, some of the same things that we've had. We've had some movie dates reshuffling. We'll talk about that, but also some pretty interesting stories. I want to talk about this one first. We got a trailer for a film that's coming to Peacock called My Son, and it stars James McAvoy and Claire Foy. The kicker with this concept is that they are claiming that James McAvoy gave a completely improvised performance for this movie, meaning he was the only cast member in the production to not be handed a script and to completely make up his lines on the fly. And what's interesting is that he is the main character. The show or the movie is about his son being kidnapped. And so he is learning the information about it's basically like a crime drama. He's learning the information about the case as we are, the viewers. So this is wacky, Kirk, but I have to get your thoughts. Like, you and I both love James McAvoy. We've talked about it a lot.
Yes.
We think he's very underrated. His ceiling is high in terms of his ability as an actor. What do you think about this undertaking?
I think this is every actor's playground dream or nightmare or both, because you have to be someone who loves improv. You have to be someone who is a very good listener. And as an actor, that's what you do the most. You listen to what someone else is giving you so you can respond accordingly and effectively. I think James McAvoy is the right person to do it. It's got to be so perfectly crafted because you have to be able to drive him towards the end goal, give him all the pieces, but also throw in the red herrings, but not have like just his mind jumbled, right? I can only imagine James McAvoy had like a little corner offset that just had the red yarn on the bulletin board, like connecting the dots and taking notes. I'll be interested if he was able to, like keep a notepad on set, like if that's part of his characterization as he's trying to put the pieces together. Because I believe it's someone has died in his family. I believe. I think he gets like the prompt, like this is you, this is your name, this is what's essentially happened.
Yeah, his son has been kidnapped. That's the prompt.
His son is kidnapped.
Yeah,
and that's it. So all the rest he just has to hear. From
like
people.
In the trailer, it looks like at some point he's a suspect, which you would expect in a missing persons case that the parents are typically put under the microscope at some point. So it's very interesting. Every once in a while you get these projects that roll around that have something gimmicky to them. I think about like Bandersnatch. I think about these films that are made where it's like, what was the one recently where it was like a stage performance and they like filmed it live and then
Hamilton.
Released it? No. It was in theaters live and there were like no cuts, no nothing, no editing. It was just like, but it was a movie. I can't remember. But these like one shot films, there's always these different concepts. The thing they did on Quibi where it's like, sometimes you have to turn your phone, and you wonder like, will any of these ever break through and be the next like cool thing that people can do? Or is this even something that can be replicated in a way that feels authentic and interesting? But this has potential. I'm very curious. I will be a little bit of a stinker on this idea because it's a film and they're obviously cutting. They're not just taking the first take every time. So I would say this idea that it's like, yes, it is technically a fully improvised performance because he is creating his own dialogue from scratch, his own reactions, his own stage directions, all of it. He's not in the screenplay, but like he probably gets a few shots to deliver lines, and maybe if he hates the way he reacted the first time, they'll cut and do a different one. So like, not to be that guy, but I'm just saying,
maybe there
like,
were rules. Yeah, that's true.
There could have been rules. There could have been rules. I was going to ask, like, do you think there was a situation where it's like, whatever you deliver, like that's the line. We can cut it and take another take at that line, but like that's the line. Like you're married to it as soon as it comes out of your mouth.
Right.
I want to know.
I believe so. I don't think he can do different versions of it, right? So if he if he stuttered the word, where are my French fries? I don't know. If whatever sentence he says, and then he says, okay, great, you can say that again, but you have to say those exact words. I don't think that would be allowed. I think it has to be genuinely whatever happens, that's it. So there has to be more camera tricks. There has to be multiple cameras that, and lots of scenes that are filmed before James McAvoy walks on set too, right?
Yeah.
So that they can get those options and out of the way in rehearsals. And James McAvoy's there to just listen and have his mind blown. Can you imagine what that scene looks like at the epiphany of whatever the climax is? Like,
Yeah.
is he going to be screaming? Is he going to be jumping for joy? Like, I'm just so excited about this. It's such a fun concept.
It is a fun concept, and we won't have to wait long to see it. So it's called My Son. For anybody who's interested by this, it's called My Son. The incomparable Claire Foy. I don't know if I mentioned her, but she's also in this project. I love her. It's on Peacock, September 15th, which is only a week and change from date of recording. So,
So I will finally be getting my free trial.
yeah, exactly. Or you can just come over to my house and we can check it out.
Maybe.
We'll have to have a viewing party. I'm very interested, and I'm mostly interested for the behind the scenes afterwards. Like I want all of it. I want all the content. It's going to be fun. Okay, next up, we had a couple of release date shuffles. Paramount, man, Paramount. They got cold feet on their entire 2021 lineup, and I think if my not math, but if my reading and comprehension is correct, Paw Patrol the movie will be the only Paramount release to hit theaters this year of their 2021 slate, because Top Gun Maverick, which was originally slated to release in November, I believe, has been pushed all the way back to May 27th of 2022. And if that date sounds familiar, it's because that was the original release date for Mission Impossible 7, which by default has now been pushed back even farther to September 30th, 2022. Jackass the movie also pushed back, which is a Paramount movie as well. So I don't think that one's releasing in 2022 either. So Paramount just said, screw it. 2021, we're out. We'll see you guys next year.
Yeah.
And I shed many not silent tears, loud tears for the loss of Mission Impossible. The fact that I will have to wait an additional, what is that, 4 months to see this movie. It's not okay. I've been looking forward to it for so long, and I am very sad about it.
I mean, not to be morbid, but we only have limited time on this earth as well. And
I mean, at some point, everybody's clock runs out, right? I mean, no one knows.
Will we live to see these? I hope so.
I
But
don't
come
know.
on, that's ridiculous. Come
Listen,
on, Paramount.
as long as we survive to October 8th to finally see No Time to Die, I think we can all agree that's a win. That's a win for everything that we've been through.
I will be, I think, a standing ovation whether that movie absolutely bombs or not, because the hype for that movie is just so unreal. I really I feel for the producers, for the actors, for the director. That's just got to be such stress. They were the first ones, and here we come. But yeah, I'll be jumping up and down for that one.
We've talked about it before, just as conceptually, but like, just imagine if No Time to Die just sucks. Like, just objectively a massive stinker of a movie. I cannot.
I'm gonna wear Obi-Wan Kenobi's cloak, and if it's terrible, I'm gonna scream at the screen, "You are the chosen one!"
Yeah, you were supposed to destroy the pandemic, not make it worse.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, it'd be so sad. But let's get that negative energy out of here. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be so great. It's gonna be great. All right, moving on. This one is very interesting. We're gonna be talking a lot of Marvel today. This is one of those Marvel stories that is not just the run of the mill. We get a new Marvel story every week. If so-and-so has been cast, or this movie's on the way, or whatever. This one's interesting. The Russo brothers were reportedly, and this is according to Wall Street Journal, the Russo brothers were reportedly in discussions with Marvel to return to direct another film. But those discussions reached an impasse as a result of the Scarlett Johansson saga. They are now at a point where they cannot decide if they will return or not, and those talks have come to a halt. So first of all, the Russo brothers were talking about returning, which, for those of you who have been listening closely, the only movie the movie they have said they would return to direct is Secret Wars. So Secret Wars confirmed? Question mark. I don't know. Like, kind of, maybe.
Was almost confirmed.
Yeah, I don't know. But then the fact that the ScarJo saga is featuring, and I hate to keep calling it that because it's obviously a two-way street, but she's the name on the lawsuit, so we're gonna call it that. The fact that that's factoring into it makes you wonder. They have worked with her previously, so there's a personal relationship there. So maybe it doesn't affect future projects, future directors, whatever. But it does make you wonder, just like how long this thing is going to linger, and at what point Disney's like, listen, we gotta cut bait. We have to just save face and save our business and get out of this thing.
Right, because their halt is because of ScarJo. They are supporting her, and they're saying, listen, we were going to return. However, this troubles us because if you're willing to do that to her, who else are you willing to do it to? I mean, ScarJo's a household name. She is one of the coolest nicknames in the history of time. So why would you do that to her? Who else are you going to throw under the bus? And the treatment, as we talked about, as we discussed, the way they went about it, their tact was just very poor and very emotional anger coming out from the new CEO. Not pretty. But that is a bummer. I was hoping that was a rumor article. It is not. I want the Russo brothers back.
I know. It's interesting. And I don't know. I continue to think Disney needs to play it really safe here, because the other thing you keep hearing is that Kevin Feige has not been happy with this. That he pushed hard for Black Widow to not be moved to a Disney Plus premiere as well as in theaters, because he was concerned about the optics of, a female-led movie going to Disney Plus. He was right. That didn't look great. Then you have all this fallout on top of that. He is not happy about the way that they're handling it. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There is absolutely not even a rumble of Kevin Feige leaving Disney or leaving Marvel or anything. But I'm just saying, like, actions have consequences. Yes. And maybe it's not this incident, but if things compound, those are the types of things that can push people away. And Marvel has such a stellar reputation in the industry that they need to make sure it doesn't get messed up by Disney, by the mouse. So, it's, continues to be something interesting to keep an eye on, for sure. All right, next up, film festivals. We talked about it at the beginning, but I just wanted to do a quick roundup. So we had Venice, which is, the big papa with the big mappa. I mean, the Venice Film Festival is always one of the biggest. There's Cannes, there's Venice, there's Sundance. Telluride, obviously a great festival in its own right, but we're talking about some huge movie premieres at the Venice Film Festival. Most notably, Dune, which premiered at the Venice Film Festival. And reports out of Venice are that it received a 7-minute standing ovation, which you get these stories for the film festival. It's so weird how these things catch on. So, I don't know, is 7-minute better than 5-minute? Or is it just that people's internal clocks are set differently?
I want to be the guy who's like, listen, there's going to be a standing ovation, maybe if they like it. So Sean, you're going to be timing it. So I don't know if he's got his Apple Watch or if
you want to be the ovation stopwatch recorder.
Hey, listen, if that's how you and I get in for free, I'm down.
Listen, exactly. It's like being the ball boy at the U.S. Open. If I have to chase down tennis balls to get in the room, so be it. We'll do whatever it takes.
It's a workout, and I'm there. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna pitch that email today for getting ready for next year. We will be your stopwatch timers for standing ovations.
We'll just start sending the emails out.
We want accuracy. We don't want any false information out there, because every big movie, there's 6 of them with standing ovation time.
There is. And here's the other thing. I want to go back and compare. I want to do a line graph that shows correlation between Rotten Tomatoes critics score and standing ovation length at the Venice Film Festival to see if it does correlate or if it's actually a misnomer.
Right.
It's
inverse.
Reverse. Yeah, inversely correlated.
Yes.
The longer the standing ovation, the worse the movie is. It's incredibly dumb. But I hope that it means that Dune is great, because I'm excited to see that one. Also, and again, we're going to see all these movies and review them, so I don't want to go too far. I try not to learn too much, but people are gushing. Critics are gushing over Kristen Stewart's performance as Princess Diana. They're calling her an Oscar frontrunner. They're calling her, for sure a nominee. contender for her performance. And the film Spencer has been decently well reviewed just on the quick tweet reviews that I've seen so far flashing across my timeline. And then another one that premiered that wasn't, I feel like I didn't have as much buzz in my timeline about it, but it was Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho. So I haven't seen anything bad about that movie. I've, seen good things about Thomasin McKenzie's performance and Anya Taylor-Joy's performance, etc. But not the same level of, there was so much, I don't know if you were on Twitter over the weekend, but so much Dune all over the place. So it'll be interesting. And that one's coming up fast. October 22nd is the release date there.
For now.
We
have to put a little asterisk next to everything.
Sure, for now. Telluride, like I said, smaller one, but I think the talk of the town at Telluride was Kenneth Branagh's Belfast, which is a sort of a black and white, semi-autobiographical, I guess, type of film. Kirk, I know Kenneth Branagh's your guy, so you're probably stoked to hear this, but it seemed to be pretty well received from the film festival.
Kenneth Branagh, born and raised in Belfast, Ireland. The movie is called Belfast. He says he's been working on this movie for 40 plus years. It's his life, and I'm going to study it like my life depends on it because I'm so excited.
What if it bombs, Kirk? What if it's terrible?
It can't, because Kenneth Branagh can do no wrong.
He can do no wrong. He's infallible. All right, Kirk, I'm with you. November 12th for Belfast to release widely. So Kirk will be first in line. I'm certain of it. It'll be a good one. So yeah, that's what's going on in film festivals. We'll keep you guys posted as those kind of develop. Again, don't want to read too much into those early reactions because a lot of it's politicking and marketing and things like that. And also, I just want to get eyes on the movie before I declare that it's good. So we'll keep you guys posted. And then the last real story that we have is that Phoebe Waller-Bridge has exited the Mr. and Mrs. Smith series that she was developing with Donald Glover for Amazon Studios. And that's coming from the Hollywood Reporter. And reportedly, the exit is due to creative differences that her and Donald Glover had the idea, pitched it to Phoebe Waller-Bridge. They were on board. They were going to co-star in it. And then somewhere along the creative process, she decided, not working out, let's go. And they are good friends. That's expected to still be intact. There's not too many inner details about things. They were in Solo, a Star Wars story together. So that's sort of where that relationship came together. But she's exiting the show. Her role is being recast, and they're saying it's still on track for a 2022 release. I am concerned. I'm concerned about this. I love both of them. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is an incredible writer, and I was actually more excited knowing that she was going to be involved in the creative process for this show. So now that she's exiting due to creative differences, I'm like, I don't know.
I think that it's exciting to see two very different artists, two very different performers, two very different writers come together to see what happens. But maybe this is a classic case of it's impossible because they both are very, I don't know them, but I would assume they're both very proud people. They've done some pretty remarkable things in a short amount of time. And I think that there's not enough room in that writer's room and in that studio to encompass that and to allow for both people to get their way.
I mean, yeah, the reality is they're both exceptionally intelligent and gifted. I mixed those two words together, but intelligent and gifted writers. So they get involved with the project. They have a clear vision. That's how I see it. It's just exactly what you're saying. And so even if those visions are 1 degree apart, as they go down the path, it's going to spread farther and farther until the point where it just doesn't make sense anymore. So yeah, I think it's totally possible that this could be amicable. I think it's totally possible that this show could still be very good under, just Donald Glover's creative direction. But I was excited about it. And now I'm like, I'm still excited, but less so, I would say. We also got a trailer for Wheel of Time, which is coming to Amazon Studios very soon. November 19th, I believe, is the release date on that one. I am determined to read the first book of that series before it comes out. It's very long, and the series itself is very long, so I'm like withholding judgment on the trailer. And I know, neither you or I have much to react to the trailer other than looks cool. Rosamund Pike, great. So we'll see if we have more to say there, but it looks well produced. I'm excited to see that one come out. So
Yes.
could be the next Game of Thrones. That's what everybody keeps saying. Could be.
Maybe.
Could
Maybe.
be.
Is it set in the same era? Is that right? I know nothing about it.
I mean, it's set in a fantastical fake world, so
Yeah.
era is sort of blurry, but I mean, the aesthetic is somewhat similar, though a little less rough around the edges than Game of Thrones was. Game of Thrones really had the whole like medieval Arthurian type of vibe to it with the dragons and the castles and whatnot. Wheel of Time looks like it's a period piece of sorts, but more polished in a way than aesthetically.
You can call me a millennial. You can call me a 90s kid all you want. But the only medieval show that I want to watch is a revival of Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules. Boy. That's all I want to see. Obviously, I don't think that Lucy Lawless and Kevin Sorbo could return, at least in their respective roles. But we have rebooted everything else.
Yeah, I was going to say, just wait.
Why has this not been a discussion yet? That's what's disturbing to me most of all. So you can have your Wheel of Time, Cam.
Wow.
I'm holding out.
I'm gonna earmark that for when this show is a massive success and you love it. I'm gonna just play that back 1,000 times. Just gonna put a little marker here. 3705. Got it. All right. So yeah, we'll talk about that more as things develop. Last thing I want to do is talk about what to watch for on streaming and in theaters. Couple of different things hopping into the old streaming services. The Cinderella film that stars Camila Cabello is now available on Amazon Prime Video. For better or worse, it's out there. I have not dipped my toes into that water because, frankly, the trailer just looks really bad. And I hate to do that, but if you don't, it's like the Halloween Kills trailer I talked to you about. If you can't get good acting in the trailer, that is a really big red flag because that's supposed to be the best parts of the movie. So, so it's a concern. But if you've seen it, let us know. Maybe it's something that we need to check out. So far, it's not on my watch list. I'd rather watch Raging Bull on my iPad at 2 a.m., which I did last night. So, also to Amazon Prime Video this weekend, The Voyeurs. Kate is dropping on Netflix this weekend. That stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead. It appears to be some sort of action film. I know very little about it, so we'll see. Malignant, which is a horror film, will be in theaters and on HBO Max this Friday. And The Card Counter, which stars Oscar Isaac and Tiffany Haddish, is dropping in theaters this weekend. It's directed by Paul Schrader, who actually wrote Raging Bull and Taxi Driver. So he's directed a couple films, but really is known more for his work as a writer. But that's coming to theaters this weekend, and only in theaters, to be clear. Then a couple of existing franchises coming to streaming. Cloverfield is now available on HBO Max. Tomorrowland, starring George Clooney, is now streaming on Disney+. Sam Raimi's Evil Dead trilogy is now streaming on HBO Max. And Don't Breathe 2, which I believe is still in theaters right now, is also available to rent on VOD as one of those like early access Prime Video Cinema, one of those deals. So if any of that interests you, you now know where to find it. So enjoy. Beautiful. Happy streaming. All right. Anything else, Kirk? Any stories that I missed?
The only two things, it's really just new streaming things that were bubbling in the back of my mind because I watched one and started watching the other, is also on Prime. Benedict Cumberbatch is getting a lot of buzz for all of his new films, including Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. There's just all this speculation happening. There's the movie about him being this crazy evil farmhand. Maybe he owns a farm. I don't know what it's about, but that also got like a 6-minute standing ovation
Power
somewhere.
Of the dog or something like that.
Yep. The dog has powers, I think. And
he's a dog. He has powers. That's all you need to know.
And he works on a farm. But there's a film based on a true story. It has to do with the World War II. No, I'm sorry, not World War II. With the Cuba Missile Crisis, he plays a real person called the Courier, now streaming.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you gotta. I think he's going for the Yahtzee of all the wars.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, Imitation Game, Dunkirk, or no, which one was he in? Dunkirk or 1917?
Both actually.
No, was he really?
He was. He was.
So
yes.
he's getting close. Cuban Missile Crisis was, I think, one of those to mark off the list. So Cold War, good to go there. Congrats to Mr. Cumberbatch.
Yep. Which war is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy? Is that World War II or
Cold War.
Cold War. All right.
Yeah.
So he's owning the cold. He's got the Cold War owned. He's got World War II. We got to get into the Korean War. We got to get into.
Well, 1917 is World War I. So I think he needs to get involved in Vietnam, which is a primarily American conflict. So he's going to need to put on his best American accent.
Yes.
Then something modern. The Gulf War. The War on Terror, or something
Iraq,
like that.
yeah. He's got options. He's got some time. I think we'll see him in every single war movie coming out.
For sure.
And speaking of war, there's also a movie on Netflix called Worth. Stars Michael Keaton. And man, Michael Keaton just, he continues to impress me.
I just love Michael Keaton so much.
Oh, my goodness. It's about, just as a brief cliff notes, it's about assigning value to the lives lost in the towers on September 11th.
Oh, that's right.
2001. Right. So I'm about halfway into that bad boy. We're a couple of days away from the 20th anniversary. So that is wild. That is wild. So I like to watch really depressing movies.
Yeah, it sounds like noticed. It. That's good. That's good. Good for you. I'm happy for you, or maybe sad for you. I don't know. But also, Only Murders in the Building. I'm going to plug it, even though we talked about it last week. It premiered last week. It premiered to the largest comedy debut in Hulu history, which, they're like even bigger than Seinfeld. Well, the difference is that Seinfeld was an existing franchise. It wasn't like a new premiere. So obviously, people are going to like. This is just consumer behavior, but good for them. I'm happy for them. I watched the first 3 episodes. I'm loving it. The 4th episode came out today, so we'll see where it goes. But that's one to check out. Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. All right, let's move on. Let's move out of what's poppin'. All right. And now it is finally time for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, our review followed by our deep dive into the implications, the MCU implications for, this film and what it could mean. But first, we're going to talk about the movie. It's the first. I was trying to figure out how to word this on social media earlier. I was like, this is the first new character solo film that we've gotten in the MCU since Captain Marvel, which came out in 2019, so it's really not that long ago, but it feels like, how long ago does Captain Marvel feel like, for real?
Decades.
So long.
We all have lived a lifetime in the past 2 years, so it really does feel like a completely different era. You have BC AD. You'll also have BP before pandemic. Seriously, this is where I feel that we're going to mark time. Oh man, it does feel like a long time.
It does, and it was like, I think that one came out in like February of 2019. So it really has been like a pretty chonky 2 years, not just like barely 2 years or something. Like, it's been a hefty one. So yeah, this was big, and it did not release on Disney Plus. We talked about the box office performance, which I want to talk about that quickly because you and I saw it in theaters. I got to take my wife to go see it a second time. The theaters were packed. Everybody was wearing their masks and doing everything they needed to do. But this is a huge win for cinema that this movie did well. This is a huge win because, in my opinion, it virtually ensures that Eternals is a theatrical only release. I would be shocked if they put it on Disney Plus at this point. And Spider-Man No Way Home, I don't think, is getting delayed. I think they're going to stick with it because it has proven the viability of it. And in fact, just today, and I didn't even want to talk about it during the What's Poppin' because this stupid release date for Venom has moved so much, but Venom has now moved their release date back up to October 1st. So it was originally, I shouldn't even say originally, but when they released the trailer, it was going to release on September 24th. Then they moved it back to October 15th, and everybody was saying, oh my gosh, they're going to move it to January. Shang-Chi comes out, slays at the box office. They move Venom back up to 1 week after its original release. I'm like, what is happening at Sony? Like, seriously, what is happening? It's like
I
me
think they
trying
have
to
a
decide what to eat for dinner. It's horrific.
they have a toddler playing with the dates.
Yeah, I
Like,
think they've got a goldfish, and there's like they've got dates around the tank, and they just like watch it all day to see which one it swims towards, and they're like, "Oh,
yes.
that's it, that's the pick." It's outrageous. But anyway, this is a huge win for traditional cinema. This is a huge win for the theaters, of which we are avid supporters, and so it's very exciting. It's all very, very exciting, is what I mean to say. But let's go ahead and talk about this movie, a movie we've been waiting to talk about for so long. It is actually my turn to synopsis. So this movie is called Shang-Chi. Say it with me, everyone. Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
Not Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And what this movie is about is a character named Shang-Chi who has a difficult past, which includes him witnessing the murder of his mother at the hands of a gang that rivals his father. He's got a father who is the head of this international, organization called the Ten Rings that sort of does business with an iron fist. And so they have enemies. His mother ends up dying. He's asked by his father to, finish the job on the guy who killed their mother, or who was responsible for her killing. And he runs away. He gets sent on this mission to do this as an agent of the Ten Rings, and he runs away to America to live his life. He lives under an alter ego. His name is Sean instead of Shang-Chi. They make jokes about that in the movie. He becomes friends with Katie, who's played by Aquafina, and then his past catches up with him, as these things do. He finds out that his dad is trying to get after him and his sister. He goes back to China and finds out about this whole, he's relearning about this mystical land called Ta Lo, where his father now believes his mother, who he watched die, he believes his mother is trapped there. And so Shang-Chi is trying to beat his father to Ta Lo so that he can protect the ancient land before his dad arrives and tries to bust his mother out of Ta Lo, where she's actually not at. So I explained that in the most confusing way humanly possible, so hopefully you guys were tracking. But that's Shang-Chi in the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Booyah.
And the Ten Rings are an organization, but they're also like physical rings. Like they're powerful, enchanted rings that give the wearer eternal life as long as they're wearing it, and also just like insane. I don't even know how you would call
agility,
it, like
endurance, protection, right? Like armor, basically.
Yeah.
It
gives you all kinds of different things you can do with it.
Spidey sense. I think we can safely say it gives you Spidey sense.
It gives you every superpower that there is. No,
right.
But they do have lots of different mystical powers, so it's very interesting. Anything I miss, Kirk?
No, that's everything. When the first part you said that he leads with an iron fist, not to be confused with
the man
leading
with the
physically
iron fist?
with Iron Fist, the superhero, like holding him in front of him,
like actual Iron Fist. Yeah,
like Danny Rand, go fight them. He's not like a slave to them or anything. No, he is dealing with an Iron Fist because he is eternal. He has eternal life. He's lived for, I think they say, somewhere around
over
150
years
old.
He said over 1,000 years is what they say. So.
Well, I heard that wrong. Okay.
It's all right, Kirk. There was a lot of information being thrown at us in this movie.
And
plus, I had the benefit of seeing it twice, so there's that as well.
That's right. And the last tidbit I would say is we'll get into it, but man, is it way better than Iron Fist, Marvel, Netflix fighting, because this crew actually does know martial arts. They actually did train to improve their skills. Unlike the lead actor in Iron Fist.
Dude, those stories coming out of that show about the lack of training and everything is mind-blowing, and it makes so much more sense why that show sucked.
Yes.
Wow. Yes, much better than that. Much, much, much better than that. But let's get into it, Kirk. I'm excited. We're going to start with, as we always do, our Oscar, and the Oscar goes to, which is our best actor. And I'm kicking us off. And man, I have struggled with this. I have struggled with this hard because I love many of the acting performances in this movie, and I think they all have merit. And we only pick two, so there are some people who are going to be left out. But without further ado, my Oscar is going to Mr. Tony Leung, which is actually. I've been reading about how to pronounce these names for like weeks. Okay. So if you're pronouncing his name in Chinese, you would probably pronounce it Tony Leung, but he is a Cantonese performer. So what I have read is that the pronunciation of his last name is closer to the word learn with a G on the end of it, but the G is like a Cantonese G where it's kind of silent. So it's like a learn. Okay. Now
Wow.
I am very Anglo-Saxon white American, so I probably still butchered that, but I promise I'm trying my best. Anyway, this guy, Tony Leung, he has been slaying the Hong Kong film scene for many, many years, and he is a personal favorite of acclaimed Hong Kong director Wong Kar-wai, who directed The Grand Master, which actually made its way over to the US for a wide release whenever that movie came out in 2013 about Ip Man, who was the trainer of Bruce Lee. But anyway, Wong Kar-wai is a legend in Hong Kong cinema and has worked with Tony Leung as, think of it as like Scorsese and De Niro, like this like, creator and muse type of relationship. So he's been involved over there and hasn't really had many chances to break through in Hollywood, I think just because he was having so much success in Hong Kong. But anyway, he plays Win Wu, who is the father of Shang-Chi and his sister Xiaoling. And he just kills it. I mean, holy cow. I was just like at every turn blown away by the performance. This was the most perfect casting choice in the world because the one thing Marvel consistently gets criticized for is the strength of their villains as characters. And the way this character was written was phenomenal, but the way this character was performed was next level. This guy gave such an incredibly honest performance. You could feel that he loved his kids. He created such a deeply rich character who really felt guilt for his past and the way that he lived his life and the way that he ruled. Also felt guilt for the way that his wife died while he was away, felt guilt for the way that he raised his kids, but had this conflict between like, oh, if I had been living my life the way that I was, this would have never happened. But if I hadn't, then if I had done that, then I wouldn't have my family. And he truly believes throughout the movie that he's doing the right thing, as all villains should. They should have a great motive. So the writing was there and the acting was way there. I mean, I could not take my eyes off of this guy when he was on the screen. And the moments that he created with his children felt so authentic, so real. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. The character development was great. And I think he was a true scene stealer, but was so good that he was actually the best actor in the entire film. So for me, it's Tony Leung. I love the performance, and I hope we get to see more of him in American cinema because more people need to see what this guy can do.
If I read it correctly, this was his first American film after
Yes.
being a just decorated film star in Hong Kong. So thank you for coming across to us. But apparently he speaks fluent English, as noted by this. I mean,
Yep.
he can flip on whatever accent he wants at any time. He was absolutely incredible. I agree. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and they're constantly in this movie flipping between speaking Mandarin and speaking English, and it's very intentional when they're making that decision. And like you said, the flip switch, it felt so natural. If you've ever been had friends, or maybe you are someone who's bilingual or grew up in a bilingual household,
Yes.
it felt so honest and genuine. That authenticity just jumped off the screen. It was really cool.
Yep, always impressive. Always impressive. I keep telling Cameron that we need to learn a second language so we can secretly tell each other
I
notes.
know a second language. I know Ubby Dubby from Zoom. Are you familiar with Ubby Dubby?
What?
Look it up.
I have seen Zoom, but I do not remember Ubby Dubby. My Oscar goes to the leading man, Mr. Simu Liu. Is that how you pronounce it, Cam?
Simu Liu, but yes.
Dang it. Simu Liu.
Yep.
Simu Liu. He's right over opposite way as I'm pointing for our visual friends right over there. The star of the show, Mr. Shang-Chi. He was great. I had low expectations for him. I did, unfortunately. And there was, I don't always go for the person who is the underdog actor. I don't always go for the performance that's the most, not laid back, but the most subtle. But I really appreciated what he did in this role. It was clear that, I mean, some he's got a sheet, right? He's probably got over 30 acting credits, but he's not been to the level as some of his other co-stars have been just quite yet. And it was apparent that he was feeding off of them, but feeding off of them well. He wasn't getting thrown under the bus. He wasn't getting swallowed. He was able to hold his own, and I really appreciated that he knew that he is the key person in all of this. But what I love that what also reflects in Chinese culture is that it's not about you. It's about the family. It's about the culture. And he very firmly upheld that, and very firmly was able to take care of his community, take care of his family when it came down to it. And you could see that in the reflection of his acting choices more than anything. His restrictive choices to cry, to not cry, his restrictive choices to scream or not scream. He didn't have to be in your face about anything, because he knows exactly who he is, even with the big secret at the beginning where it's like, yeah, I'm just a valet driver, and then all of a sudden he destroys about 30 different bad guys on a moving bus without breaking a sweat. So absolutely incredible performance, technically and not technically.
Love it. It's a great choice, and I wasn't choosing Simu Liu, so I'm so glad you did, because I didn't want it to be like I thought his performance was great. I really did. I just thought so many performances were great in this movie that I didn't get a chance to highlight it. So I'm glad we split the difference there, because it's one that deserves it. All right, moving over to Scene Stealer. I'm going with an actor who is becoming one of my personal favorites right now, Aquafina. I love Aquafina and just about everything that she's doing right now. I think what she brings is exceptional. I think she's obviously an incredible comedic force, one of the best that we have in any in any era. I think she's absolutely hilarious and brings a charisma and a life to the screen, and just a really authentic charm that is just impossible to duplicate. Like, she just brings something that is just so next level to the screen that I'm always excited to see her on the cast list. But where she gets you, this is what's cool about her, and what makes her a great scene stealer as an actor, is that she's not an actor with a ton of range, right? In the traditional sense, she doesn't modify her voice very much between performances. She doesn't, do accents, and at least so far in her career has not really delved into those waters. But the reason that she is still a great actor, and why she has done an incredible job and did an incredible job in this movie, is she has this sneaky, I don't even know what to call it, but this authenticity and this heart that she can bring. She can give you a really honest, emotional response to things, and can switch seamlessly and very naturally from being the total class clown, point of humor, the comedic relief, to being a really serious, poignant, emotional focal point in a given scene. And it makes the impact of those scenes so much greater, because she is someone who you've been laughing with for the whole first half of the movie, that whenever these scenes get serious and you see, the depth of the relationship and the development of the character, it's just like, ooh, it's really good. And this is why she received critical acclaim for her performance in The Farewell. It's her ability to do this. And so while it's not a traditional transformative acting performance, she is able to reach emotional depth that a lot of actors struggle to do. And she does it in a way that's so authentic that it brings you into it. You can feel it in your heart and in your gut, and it's really powerful. So I had to go with Aquafina, who played Katie. By the way, I didn't mention her character's name. She is Shang-Chi's American friend. So she is of Chinese descent, but was born in America, raised in America, is totally, you know, is not from China per se. So
Right. Had to wonder at the finale. Aquafina most recently played a dragon in
that's that's
Ryan the Last
right.
Dragon, and then she's trying to kill the dragon. The
Yeah.
dragon, the evil dragon monster. I mean, I don't know,
She's
man.
trying to help one dragon kill another dragon. So
Yes,
it's like, wow.
pretty conflicting right there. I mean, that was her last performance, basically.
I know. Tough.
Yeah, good choice. I think Aquafina is a little polarizing. I lie in the middle of that. I'm not polarized by her. She had a great performance in The Farewell, which got critical acclaim. Fantastic film. I think you're a big fan. I'm not a huge fan, but I don't hate her. I think she gets a lot of hate, and I think that's unwarranted.
I
You know,
agree. I think it's unwarranted. I think people see the goofy YouTuber name and they hear her voice, which is, very like
raspy.
different and and
Um,
and just like it's just out there. It's like very in your face. It's like something that's very loud and percussive in nature. So I think people hear that and they're just like, but you got to peel back the onion, man. You got to go layers deeper because she has a lot to offer. And I
yeah.
will defend her to the ends of the earth, Kirk. I will defend her.
I want to see you. My kids just finally watched Shrek, and I want to see like us in armor fighting over, and I want like
Yes.
Aquafina to be like the maiden, and like, are you for her or are you against her?
I
And I
will
want,
I will defeat everyone and for her honor.
oh man, or Braveheart. I want you to get like the long hair. Let's just go through every major battle scene over that was
For
fighting
sure.
mainly over a woman. Troy. What we can keep going. So my scene stealer happens to be, and I looked up the pronunciation because I absolutely butchered our lead character. Let's hope I get this right. Mung Mung Zhang.
Yes, Meng Erjong. Very
Beautiful.
good.
Beautiful. She plays Simu Liu's sister in this film. The character's name is Xiaoling, which is
Xialing. Yep.
Xialing. I'm going off of a tweet from Mr. Simu Liu. I'm
Yes.
butchering this left and right. She plays the
No, it's all right.
sister. She is the, if you will, the heiress to the Ten Rings. Should the dad ever die, right? And she has not been in many things in her home country or here, and she was stunning as an actress to come out and just dominate the screen. I loved from the first beat of hers as in the Chinese culture. There is a lot of it's all about the patriarchy. It's all about the men. It's all about the carrying on their name and legacy and lineage. And you see that she is forbidden from being allowed to train, as her father is basically enslaving his son to train. And he doesn't really want to do it, but he does it. That's his dad. And thank goodness he did it because he saved the world at the end of this movie. Spoiler alert. But the daughter, Xiaoling, she was able to train in the background. So no one was looking at her. So she'd watch from a distance, and she had that rope thing with the daggers attached to it. I mean, like absolutely incredible. Her technical work in kung fu, her skill as an actress was absolutely incredible. I was just captivated by her, and I hope that we continue to see her in many things to come, not just in the MCU, but to really see. I like this to be a wonderful gateway to some of these actors that we haven't had an opportunity to witness before. Yeah, she wins my scene stealer today.
Yeah, I love this whole ensemble cast, so I just want to talk about all of them because I thought they were so great.
Hmm.
Each one brought so much to the film, but her facial expressiveness in this movie was next level. Just
Hmm.
like doing things that felt so unbelievably natural, but are so nuanced that a lot of actors can't do it. I was blown away. There's a scene where her and Katie, so Xiaoling and Katie, get separated into their own room when they're like back at the Ten Rings headquarters, and they have this conversation where Katie's sort of like trying to figure out more about how she like started an underground fight ring when she was 16, and it's like a really crucial piece of character development. And the way that she is reacting to everything Katie says in that scene is just so incredible. It's just like really well done, really thoughtful, and well executed. And she's mostly reacting with just facial expressions before she delivers her lines, and it's just so good. So yeah, totally agree. Munger Zhang, love that performance, and glad that the post credits scene confirmed that she will be back in full force in future installments of the MCU, and potentially for sure sequel to Shang-Chi whenever that eventually happens. Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. All right, let's move on to analysis of the film and the more production technical side. So we're going to start with Showstopper, and for me, my Showstopper is it's hard to explain, but at its most basic level, I would say it's the character development in the film. Um, but what I really like is how our director, Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed one of my favorite indie films of all time, Short Term 12, starring Brie Larson, um, what he created here is really just a straight up martial arts movie. And I have been loud about my love for that genre in the past on this show. And the reason that I love the genre is because they know how to create these really dynamic character epics that follows a person through their life journey, tells that story with martial arts, but does so in a way that's deep and complex and creates a really well-rounded hero character. Well, the development of every character who was a major role in this movie was incredible. Even the mother, who is never alive in present day in this movie. She's only found in flashbacks. It's just insane. Like, every character has a very specific purpose. They have a deep backstory. They have complex motivations and emotions and depth. And it just makes the story so much more rich. I mean, we have not seen this level of character development in the MCU, period. From either a lead character or the entire ensemble in a solo film. We just have not seen it. I think the closest that we've gotten is probably Black Panther. But the difference with that is that Black Panther has the benefit of having been in Civil War. So we get to see his backstory, of his dad being killed in a terrorist attack, and we get to see a little bit of who he is as a character, so they don't have to spend as much time with his particular character traits, and they can focus on Shuri and Okoye and Nakia and everybody involved in Wakanda. It's still great, but I'm just saying, like, Shang-Chi had to build that all from the ground up with no previous knowledge, and is just overall a lesser known character compared to Black Panther. But I thought that the depth of the character was extraordinary, and that the development was really well paced, was really thoughtful, and just they all grew together as the film moved along, and you didn't ever feel like, oh, we were learning so much about that character, but then it fell off or whatever. Like, they were all moving in such perfect tandem towards the same finish line, and it just all resolved and paid off incredibly well. I was blown away by it. And I think that it's purely, in my opinion, it's really just Destin Daniel Cretton, the director, looking at the martial arts genre and being a student of film and saying, this is how they build characters. We're going to take pages out of that book, and we're going to make a straight up martial arts movie that just happens to be in the MCU. And that's exactly what they did. And it was stellar.
Yeah, it's no question that's mine too. The martial arts, the care for it. I know no martial arts. I don't intend to learn, but yes, I was a 10-year-old boy watching Jackie Chan movies, Police Story, the whole series, Twin Dragons, Super Cop. The list goes on. I've seen almost all of his. I would rent them from the grocery store over and over and over again. I love that they cited, let's see, they've got Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Kung Fu Hustle, which is fantastic, Tai Chi Master, The Matrix, and Ip Man and Jackie Chan films as the influence on their martial arts action in this movie. It all shows. It all shows in such a wonderful way. What a fantastic blend. And that's why it's just next level. I mean, the speed in which Simu moves in this film is unreal. I don't even think there's any camera tricks. I think that his level of training, he already had about 2 or 3 different martial arts training under his belt, and he went through rigorous training to learn about 6 more different styles to blend those together. Because if you are training to end the world with the 10 rings. You need to know how to fight in every way, shape, and form. And they did just that with their team. It's just next level. It's martial arts on steroids that they were able to combine all of these different forms and just make it look like they were all on steroids. And mind you, Simu did not get powers till the end of this film, just absolutely owning and destroying everyone he came in contact with that was against him. Absolutely incredible throughout. And that alone, the combat tells its own story, which I think people will maybe not be in tune with, but it really does. It tells you, again, back to the culture. What are you fighting for? What's the purpose of this? And are you fighting to kill, or are you fighting to disarm? There are all these different things, and why with the intent when you fight, or when you defend, or when you kill. All of this goes into play with like the core chi, if you will, of Shang-Chi and his overall demeanor. It all ties back. You're exactly right. The character development throughout this, to describe, to start to finish, we get in all the other intro Marvel films of our big characters who get their solo films, we get snippets with anticipation of a second and third and fourth film. But this one, we learn the most in a very short amount of time, which was excellent. So martial arts, fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny to think about the fact that like in real life, Simu Liu is closer to being his actual superhero than anybody else. Like
Yes.
Shang-Chi at its most basic level, like that character is a martial arts master, and I think you could call Simu Liu that at this point as well, based on all the training you were just talking about that he's been through. Like the dude knows his martial arts and was doing, pretty much everything that we saw aside from commanding cosmic rings in this movie. He was doing everything else.
I think that was no special effects. I think he figured
he
that out.
actually has them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only other character that we know that would have that would be Tom Holland, because of his just incredible dance and gymnastic background, where he can just flip on command. So they're the real ones, the real heroes.
They're the real deal for sure. Okay. Moving to the other side, and some things that maybe we didn't like as much about the movie, our director's shoes. So if I'm giving critiques to Destin Daniel Cretton, I think the big one for me is, well, first of all, I should just say this. The movie is extremely ambitious and goes from like point A to point B. The scale that they have to reach from point A to point B is astronomical. Like they go from, this guy lives in San Francisco, parks cars valet, and knows some martial arts. That's point A. Point B is he needs to ride on a dragon, kill a flying demon monster with the 10 rings, and save the ancient Ta Lo realm. Like, preposterous amount of ground they need to cover to make that make sense, which they did. But here's an analogy, and it's probably going to be terrible because I know nothing about weightlifting. But here's what I'm picturing. Like, a weightlifting competition, they have to like lift this massive weight like straight over their head, right? Well, it's one thing to get the weight up there, but then you have to hold it, right? Or like it's kind of like almost if you're doing a pull up or something, like flexed arm hang. Once you get up there, you have to hold it. And I feel like they scaled nicely, and I was like, okay, I'm buying it. We got the dragons. I'm here for it. I'm there. But then once they got up there, like the momentum kind of went. And I think that weirdly, it was just cinematically that it didn't happen. So like as soon as what they called like the I don't know, like the chief soul sucker, the master soul sucker demon thing that comes out, when he finally comes out from behind the dragon scale gate and the big fight's about to begin, you're like, oh snap. But when that happens, the music drops out completely. It goes completely silent, which the effect there for a second is actually okay. But then it never really builds back up. And the music that they do add in is like not very percussive. It's not very loud and rhythmic. It's just like very string oriented and just frankly just quiet. It really was. Like I saw this on the loudest screen I could find, and that scene just felt, that final scene where Simu is riding on the back of the dragon and is going to kill the demon monster, it just was eerily quiet. weirdly. Like it just didn't flow or fit. And so that's why it feels like they scaled up and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you actually did it. Like I'm buying this. This is working." But then it felt awkward and weird because like nobody was saying anything. Like they're using cosmic forces to kill this giant demon and it's just like quiet. It's bizarre. So that was it was hard to make that tangible. So hopefully that tracked, but that was a big one. And the other thing for me that's more minor is the visuals. I think they do a really good job of setting the tone early with the fight between Shang-Chi's father and mother in Ta Lo before they're married. They set the tone of like, this is going to get weird and mystical and very, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, martial arts style. There's going to be people sort of flying in the air, running off of the wind, stuff like that. But then it's the other special effects that like weirdly fall short sometimes, like the stuff that should be easier, like the bus falling apart in that scene at times looks pretty bad, honestly. Like, and then there's a few parts in Ta Lo where like the dad punches Simu or punches Shang-Chi into the water and the water splits and it just looks really artificial. So there are lapses where at one moment you're looking like, oh my gosh, the Great Protector, this giant dragon looks so great. But the next you're like, oh, they kind of flubbed that like very like much more basic thing. So just a little bit inconsistent there. But those are my two major gripes.
Excellent. I'm so glad you brought up that water punch because it is the worst shot in the movie.
It
hands
doesn't
down.
look good.
Hands down. I mean, you have Abomination fighting Wong in this film, which we haven't seen him in a long time. Even have him in the locker room, and you have the portals back. You have so many things, but that scene, which those were all good things, but you have opportunity for things to not age well immediately, and that just straight up didn't look good at all. It didn't look good at all, and I just question who was responsible for that shot. Oh man, it was crazy. So one of the biggest gripes I have with my director's shoes for this film is the use of flashbacks, and I believe that Black Widow had a very similar situation. They had a lot of story to tell in a short amount of time. However, we'll get to that. They had more time. They just didn't realize it. But the use of flashbacks, they got too cumbersome. It almost felt like a way out when they got to a certain point as oh, you know what? We need one more surprise right here. Let's tell them a brand new piece of information an hour and 45 minutes into the film. We've been using flashbacks, so we would have foundation and grounds to use another one, but it doesn't work when you've used 6 flashbacks already. I think that there should have been a better way to tell that story. Now, you can reference a flashback you've already seen, but not a continuation or an extended continuation that wasn't already pointed, right? So one of the things you have when the mother dies, she whispers something to Shang-Chi. Well, we didn't really get that there was any significance with that. And then you have like a scene that's 2.5 minutes longer when she's telling him, basically giving him his rally cry there at the end to kill the master demon sucker dragon. I just felt like things like that, they should have been clearer at the beginning to justify calling back to them or for continuously calling back to flashbacks. In Black Widow, we saw it with Rachel Weisz and ScarJo when they flashed back to when they were in the house, the mom's house, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we made this plan. This is how we're going to trick them. We're going to mask up. We're going to switch our outfits." Right? Similar way that they gave us a little too much too late. And I just think that, man, they were on such a good motion. And like you said, the momentum just kind of plateaued and stayed there for a while and then didn't rise again. So we rose and kind of stopped and kind of stayed there for a long time. The music, I'm with you, it felt muted. So then we couldn't rise anymore. It was just kind of like punching at the ceiling to see like what else we could get out of it. And then the resolution was nice and tidy. So if I stick to those, that one specific visual just drove me crazy. That water punch, absolutely.
Dude, you got to watch the bus scene again too, because the bus, I was shocked at times at how bad the bus falling apart looked. I was like, come on, guys, come on.
Okay. And if I gotta add one more, I will. The guy who played Razor Fist with the, he didn't have a forearm. He had different detachable things. I mean, he's probably like a real MMA fighter or a
I
wrestler.
know. I actually didn't look into that, but I think you're probably right.
And his acting, man, it was just not good. It was not
Yeah, and he got
good.
like very few speaking lines too.
And then he had like a big moment at the end where right before he just gets like owned, and I was like, all right, I'm fine with that. But I think he'll be back. Does he doesn't get completely annihilated, does he?
No, no, he's still with
Oh,
Xialing at the end
that's right. That's
with the
right.
10 rings. So he's gonna
Yes.
be like her right hand, I guess. No pun intended. He
Ah,
has like a
hey.
machete for an arm. So, and it is his right hand
It
as well.
is.
So there you go. Okay, good call. Let's jump into final thoughts and scores, so then we can dig into the wider MCU related implications of this, which I'm very excited about. Okay, so Shang-Chi, I think there was a wide range of where this score, not too wide, but a point width range of where my score could have landed for this movie, but it gets extra decimal points for the fact that I just freaking loved it. I just thought it was so fun, and I think it was the scene where they're in Macau, fighting on the outside of the building,
Yeah.
that I was just like, yes, cinema, blockbuster movies, smash mouth action sequences, well choreographed, well shot. I was just like, yes, please. This is so awesome. And I loved Ta Lo, the new world that they introduced us to. I thought the world building was great. I thought, so much of it was good. Don't get me wrong, not a perfect film, but just a really enjoyable watch. And I thought a really, really, it exceeded my expectations of what they would be able to do with this character in its first movie. Um, it's just very exciting. It's very exciting as a fan of the MCU, as a fan of Marvel. I'm excited. I can't wait for the second movie and for his next appearance, and Katie's next appearance, and Xia Ling's next appearance. Like, these characters made an immediate impact. The world building was excellent. It just felt like a really, really solid entry, and the best first solo movie that we've had for a character in a really long time. So it's getting an 8.8 out of 10 for me. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was really great.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
You're up.
I came in, I was just giddy over this movie. I remember sitting next to Cam and I said, dude, I'm so excited. I'm jazzed about this movie. And it held up. It held up as well. In comparing it with other uh, origins, this is a big one, and it already has. What's coolest about this is, and we'll talk about it here shortly, is how big the world is already. The way that Shang-Chi is entering the MCU with all these other factors at play, that he can't just enter the MCU because things are in motion, and that's the right choice. We can't just ignore them, to the fact that he is immediately interacting with big characters in the MCU, interwoven with Wong, interwoven with Abomination, just fighting him and being buddies outside of this world. Like, hey, come on, let's head back, and then Wong pulling him back in there at the end of the film to say, hey, we need you. Doctor Strange wants to chat with you. There's so many cool things that this film does that other ones have not had the opportunity to. And I think it's smart that they didn't stray away from that, that they continue to change the formula. And in the biggest way possible, they change the formula to meet the needs of the character and not meet the needs of storytelling, and not meet the needs of strictly advertising. It's very easy that they could have done that. And I think they've done it in the past. But this one is a big win. 8.5 out of 10 kernels for me.
Love it. Good choice. Good job. Good scores all around. You and I were pretty much on the same page. I think it's worth noting that, speaking of formulas and speaking of advertising, they put a ton of budget behind marketing here, and we I think people love to say, oh, the marketing department, when a movie tanks, that the marketing department didn't do a good job. What it really comes down to is how much money you spend on marketing your film. And Kevin Feige and the people at Disney Marvel Studios, they said, listen, we're doing this thing fully theatrical, and we're going to put a crap load of money behind this thing. We're going to do spots everywhere: TikTok, YouTube, traditional media, social media, everywhere. It was all over the place. We're going to tie in the Avengers, so people know that this is MCU. We're going to release scenes from the movie so people can see how cool it is. They just really got behind it. That all the actors were doing appearances on podcasts and all kinds of different media. It's just really well done. So I think the formula is there. People now know that if you spend the money, and I think honestly, Venom has done a good job so far marketing their movie. If you spend the money, the people will show up, and they will make it happen. You can safely view movies. We've been doing it for months safely and enjoying it. So it's time for people to come back to the movies and to do so in a safe way. And Shang-Chi just proved that it can be done. It can be done, and that's very exciting. So, all right, Kirk, let's get into the fun stuff. Let's get into the MCU. I've got a few things I want to talk about, but the one thing we didn't talk about in our review regarding wider MCU implications is the big Mandarin Retcon. So, for those of you who do not remember, in Iron Man 3, they seemingly introduced one of the biggest villains from the comics, a villain called the Mandarin, who has the power of the 10 rings and all of these things. Turned out that it was actually just a British actor named Trevor Slattery, and that the Mandarin was not real and was just a puppet for a different terrorist, Aldrich Killian and all of that. At that time, fans, myself included, were outraged at the fact that one of the best villains had been written off of the MCU just seemingly like that in this, gag sort of way. It's almost like the Ralph Boner thing that happened with WandaVision. But I want to know, Kirk, with the way that they addressed it, bringing Trevor back, explaining the Mandarin situation in more depth via Wenwu's little monologue about names and all that. With the way that they brought it all full circle, do you think it is a successful retcon and we can turn the page, or are you still? Well, I guess just what are your overall thoughts on how they went about it?
I thought it was well done. I really do. I think Wenwu's speech at the dinner table was very calm, cool, collected. He was very believable. He was just like, yeah, people call me whatever they want. He didn't go as far as to like say, they wanted to call me the boogeyman, but the Mandarin basically was kind of that moniker that he was just a fictional horror fairy tale. And in his eyes, he was not. In his eyes, he's bringing order. In his eyes, he's taking care of business the way that needs to be done. I thought that Mr. Ben Kingsley as Trevor, this actor again, he did a great job again. I don't see it being sustainable in the future, but I guess he might, just pop up, just hang out in Ta Lo for whatever reason. That might just be his new home. Maybe he'll give acting classes there and hang out with his buddy Morris that he got to spend time with before he was about to be killed by the 10 rings. So I thought they did a good job. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
No, I honestly am a fan of it. And I know why they can't really use the Mandarin in its traditional form, because it is sort of the name, the depiction is a little bit behind the times. And so they still gave us our Mandarin villain in the form of Wenwu, same guy, the 10 rings, all of it. So I was thoroughly pleased with that. It made sense for his character arc to end at the end of this movie. It had to be that way. Of course, I always wish that, a villain as great as he was could live on, but it would not have made sense for him to live on from a character arc perspective. So I was pleased with it. And I as much as I was like, I never want to see Trevor Slattery again on screen, the way that Ben Kingsley handled this performance and the way that they wrote him into the movie was frankly just really smart and very funny, and added another layer of fun and charm to the movie that was unexpected and just really cool. So I really enjoyed it. All right, let's talk about, we've got two post-credit scenes on this movie. The first post-credit scene shows Shang-Chi and Katie immediately after being pulled through the portal by Wong, and they're having a conversation about the 10 rings with Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner. They're talking about the origin of the rings. They talk about how the rings appear to be older than what Shang-Chi was told by his father, older than 1,000 years old. They're talking about how whenever Shang-Chi first put on the rings, that they felt it in Kamertage, that Wong felt it, and whenever they analyze the rings, that there is, some sort of pulse or communication going on with those rings. Um, do you think they're just building towards multiverse implications, that these rings are speaking to a different dimension or a different universe, or do you think that they're building to something else altogether?
It has to tie in, obviously, with Doctor Strange because you have Wong immediately popping in throughout this film, and they talk about it being a beacon, right? So it's more scientific than it is mystical. I don't see it leaning into Asgard. Um, I don't know enough about the Ten Rings to know if that's a place that that the Mandarin attempted to take over. But I really do believe that they're just trying to give us an immediate connection into Doctor Strange and the multiverse. But whether that means it goes like everywhere in the multiverse, I don't know. Who that beacon is reaching out to is what I'm interested most in. And if it's like super ancient, like obviously it's not. I don't think it goes to the ancient one. That'd be too easy. But I don't know. Could it be going to since you got what's his name Mordo, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yep.
Um, it could be a beacon coming out to him because it's along the same science magic. Maybe he is older than we think he is, and obviously he's off the beaten path. I still think he has to return in some way, shape, or form in the future because he's too good to let go. I'm interested most in who that beacon is calling.
Yeah. Could it be calling the Eternals?
Stop it.
I mean, in the sense that we know the Eternals are thousands of years old, that they have
Yes.
been here, that they only come into action for certain events. We know that, from the comics, that their job was to protect humanity, and maybe that means equipping them with things they can use to protect themselves, like the Ten Rings. To
Hmm.
be clear, I haven't read this anywhere. I'm just like totally spitballing, but it could have something to do with the Eternals. I think people would be maybe a little bit upset about that because we already know the Eternals are coming, so it's not like the payoff that you want. Um, but it's interesting. Do you think Captain Marvel leaving, being like, "Hey guys, I gotta go," do you think it's related to the same beacon call, or do you think it's totally unrelated?
I think it's related to, yeah, I think it's unrelated. I think it's related to the Marvels
Yeah,
and what we'll see her. I think that look, that hair length, of course, there's been lots of criticism there. I think that is her specifically going to that. And I think it's part of her running joke. Like she doesn't stick around for long, she just
yeah,
rolls
yeah.
out.
Yep.
Which that joke didn't play very well in this credit scene, at least on our viewing. And the jokes that the quips that her and Bruce have, they were very flat.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Did they play better on your second viewing with that audience?
Yeah, a little bit. It was a
Yeah.
bit more crowded theater, but it wasn't like riotous laughter or or anything like that. Like people
Yeah.
snickered here and there, but it wasn't anything special.
Okay. Cool.
Uh, the other post credit scene that we got, like the after credits scene, is Shang Chi says something about, oh, my sister's back, shutting down my dad's operations. Well, it turns out she's not actually shutting down his operations. She's ramping things back up and rebuilding the Ten Rings in her own image.
Yes.
Um, so, first of all, my opinion was whenever they said they're waiting, I thought for sure it was going to be Val. Like I was for sure expecting Julia Louis Dreyfus to be there, being like, "Hey, I'm putting together a team, and you're exactly the kind of person that I need." It wasn't, but the Ten Rings are scaling up. Do you think our character Xiaoling has good intentions in mind for this organization, bad intentions, or really just her own intentions, neither good nor bad?
I think it's always been her own intentions. She's always been on her own, and now officially, both of her parents are gone. So she's going to do whatever she wants and take whatever she wants. She's been doing that her entire life already. And now her brother's, back in the States. So she's effectively on her own again. She decided in her mind that this is what she was going to do no matter what. It's interesting because she definitely fought for the cause of this dragon, taking down Dad and taking down these crazy dragons. It's interesting to see that she would still continue on that route. So I'm interested behind the motive, obviously power, but why that kind of power with that team, or are they steering us astray and she's going to just build them into a superhero kung fu fighting team?
Yeah, I mean, all options are on the table. I'm very intrigued. That was not necessarily what I was expecting from our post credit scene, but I was intrigued for sure. Definitely intrigued and interested to see where it goes.
Hmm.
I agree. I think she's going to be a host unto herself and use this. Or I think there will be times where this organization has, motivations that contradict what the Avengers are trying to do, or more specifically, what Shang-Chi is trying to do. But I think there will be times where they can be used as a resource as well, a la the Wakandans and that whole
Yes,
force. Because sometimes you just need bodies that are trained to fight
that's
for
right.
these, for these Thanos level threats. Sometimes you just need people that you can throw at an army of demon monsters from space, and maybe that's the ultimate role that they will play. But we'll see. Two remaining things. One, we know the Ten Rings have an interesting past with regard to what they do to people's mindset, what that kind of power can do. Do you expect Shang-Chi to be using these rings in every fight going forward, or only using them at certain moments when the type of action needed is calling for them?
Great question. Great question. I think he's going to be tactfully caught by surprise so that we see just the bare bones Shang-Chi fighting again. But I think at most, I think he will try to wear them as much as possible so that they don't get stolen, so that they don't, get taken to take over the world. Because who's going to steal these? And I imagine whoever steals them next, because they'll probably try to be stolen. When they steal them, if they wield them, they won't be wielded like Shang-Chi. They're going to be like absorbed most likely in some
Yep.
kind of intergalactic way, I feel. Uh, so in that regard, um, yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of both.
Yeah. I feel like since they put so much emphasis on, like, is he wearing the rings, and him taking them off and choosing to age naturally or whatever, I feel like he's going to want to leave them off as much as possible. Um, but that there will be times where it's necessary, and that maybe Shang-Chi putting on the 10 rings is like, uh-oh, it's go time. I mean, I know that his outfit is a spoiler in and of itself because it cuts off here so that there's room for 5 rings to fit on each of his
Yes.
forearms. So we always knew that he was going to get the rings because of that. But I don't know. I kind of think he will use them sparingly going forward.
And I think maybe they don't have the corruption factor because of his, he is of his mother and his father, right?
Yeah.
So
And
the
his aura changed the color of the rings and everything.
right. So the purity and the innocence of what his mother stood for and the power that came from that, I think that will hopefully protect him from becoming corrupt by wearing the rings.
Yeah. I could see that. Okay, so the final question, I guess, is so the Avengers, and this is a difficult one because the Avengers are very different than they were before, but there are sort of tiers to Avenger level heroes. In our new Avengers, which haven't really been formed yet, they're sort of scattered all across the board. We assume that Captain America, Sam Wilson, will be involved as a high ranking official in the Avengers. We assume that Captain Marvel will be involved as well, presumably Doctor Strange. Do you think that Shang-Chi is one of the characters that rounds out the core Avengers group for the remaining phases, or do you think that he is more of a Ant-Man type character who comes in for the big events but is also doing his own thing that's in sort of a wholly different realm, on the side, and not one of the like core Avengers per se?
I love that question as well because we don't have a clear leader yet. We don't have or like a top three that are going to be telling, calling the shots. Thor obviously is one of them because he's been there the longest. You would assume Doctor Strange just because of the implications of A, his age, and B, from the comic book lore. So who fills the other top tier spot, and who's always going to be around for the big guns and who's not? I think for phase 4, I think he pops in and helps when it affects his strengths, when it affects his realm, right? But I don't think we'll have him fully realized, fully actualized until phase 5. Just as a guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and there's nothing really wrong with being a tier below. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy are not core Avengers, but they are Avengers that, they fight alongside the Avengers and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how it plays out. I think fan reaction has been great to this movie, so if they go that route, they certainly could. But I also think there's so much fun and so much fun to be had in that other realm of like Ta Lo and everything that's going on there, that he could go the Ant-Man, Black Panther route and kind of just hang out in their own little realm, do their stories, but also help the Avengers when there's these huge threats. It'll be interesting to see. I can't wait to see what our new like core Avengers are. I want another New York City standing in a circle type scene with our new Avengers, and maybe we'll never get that because they've moved beyond that. But I would love to have it. Just as a comic book nerd, I would love to have this core set of these are our Avengers, and then there's also the wider Avengers team as well. Like that's what I want.
I think we'll get that. I think we'll get that because you need to have familiarity, so you won't necessarily get the Michael Bay swing around, of the camera work of all of them. But I think you'll get something of that effect where we see them band together and it's clear, like, this is it. This is the team. This is where they're going to shut things down and not take it anymore. I think one of the other reasons why Shang-Chi won't be part of the core alliance of the Avengers as a pop-in instead in phase 4 is because he's young. I think him as an actor, he's a little bit older than his role, but he's very young in character development and in age of their storyline. So someone of that age, unless they're more mature in their storyline, they're just not going to be that leader just yet. But I can see a very cool, mature version of this growing on us, still keeping the core value of his humor and of his American life and his troubled past all together, all wrapped up in one. I think that's down the line, though.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he's geographically located in San Francisco. So we've talked about West Coast Avengers on some of our Spilled Popcorn episodes. We know Ant-Man is also located in San Francisco. Maybe there's room for a split off Avengers team. Plus, we got the young Avengers presumably coming into the fold at some point. So maybe there is the core Avengers, but then there's also these spin-off groups of the West Coast Avengers, the Young Avengers, etc., where there's room for everybody to have a starring role in their own group, and then they all come together to fight Kang or whoever else comes into the mix at some point. So
Namor, he's fought in water, so I think he could take on Namor.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else, Kirk? Anything else you want to talk about MCU related, or do we cover it all?
Not at this time. I'm keeping it a secret.
I love it. Play your cards close to the chest here. We don't want to give away all our good nuggets just yet. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. That's all we've got for you this week. It's good to be back with big blockbuster franchises and movies to talk about. And of course, if you're starving for more Marvel content, we got you covered over on Spilled Popcorn, both the YouTube series as well as the podcasts. And we'll be covering a lot of different things. I don't know what we're going to be reviewing next week because we're kind of hitting a dry spell in terms of movies. Maybe Kirk and I drag ourselves to the theaters to see the card counter, but we've been going to the movies a lot lately. Maybe we pack it in this week and check out something on Netflix or HBO Max. If you have suggestions, as always, let us know. We would love to hear them. We're totally open to that. And also, if you want to chat with us about Shang-Chi or any of the other stories we talked about, you can always reach us on social media as well as our Discord server where you can join and chat with us there. But for now, that's all we got. So we want to give a special thank you to our executive producer, Ryan Spriggs, as well as our the group Rhetoric, the band who created our original music, which you're about to hear right now. And we will be back this time next week.
Talk to you then.